It's 4:30 and I would like to call the meeting to order. To start, we'll acknowledge that the District of Tofino operates within the territory of the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation. Notice to attendees that the meeting is being video recorded and will be published on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel. Also notice to virtual attendees to sign up for public comment and question period using the Q&A function in Zoom. To register, participants are required to enter their full name, residential address, and the agenda item they wish to speak to. Item 2, approval of meeting location. Through unanimous consent, if there are no objections, I will move that pursuant to section 11(1) of the District of Tofino Meeting Procedures Bylaw 1229/2016. The temporary facility provided for the public to watch and hear the October 21st, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting is to be held in the multi-purpose room at the Tofino Community Hall, located at 351 Arnett Road in Tofino, British Columbia, and that the meeting is to be held electronically via Zoom and live broadcast via the District of Tofino's YouTube. Seeing no objections, that motion is carried. Item 3, adoption of the agenda. Also through unanimous consent, if there are no objections, I will move that the October 21st, 2024 Committee of the Whole agenda be adopted. Seeing no objections, that motion is carried. Item 4, adoption of minutes. If there are no objections, again, I will move that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held August 26, 2024 be adopted. Seeing no objections, that motion is carried. Item 5, public comment on agenda items. Ms. Telshaw, do we have anybody signed up?
Thank you, Chair Thomas. I will now make an open call for comments to both members of the public present in the gallery and those participating online, although there is no one participating. And so for those in the gallery who wish to speak, please raise your hand. If there is anyone, For those in the gallery who wish to speak, please raise your hand. Before making a comment, you will need to state your name, your address, and the agenda item you're speaking to. I will now do a call calling once, calling twice, calling 3 times. There are no comments at this time, Chair Thomas.
Thank you. Seeing no delegations or correspondence, we'll move right into item 8, presentations and reports. Starting with item 8.1, a SMILE program update with a verbal report from Community Services. I believe Ms. Wallace, you're bringing us.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, and thank you for having me. My name is Kelsey, and I am the Recreation Programmer 1 for the District of Tofino. I am excited to introduce to you the SMILE program. This stands for Support Meals Improving Lives of Elders. Our program is designed to enhance the well-being and inclusion of seniors within our community through a variety of engaging activities and support services. Today, I'll take you through the key components of the program, its impact, and how we're making a difference in the lives of our seniors. I'm going to start off with a little fun fact. The name of this program was actually created during one of our senior socials, where our enthusiastic group of seniors gathered to brainstorm ideas together. And thanks to Jan McDougall for her wordsmithing on the name. So the SMILE program has 3 main components. Within the Wednesday Senior Social, we have the social and shared meals and the presentations, activities, and workshops. And then we have the meal delivery section, which is meal delivery with friendly visits. So each Wednesday, our Senior Social starts off with a warm meal. The rec team connects with local chefs to prepare a meat and a gluten-free, vegan-friendly soup option each week. Some chefs choose to make an extra batch at their restaurants, such as Murray from Schooner or Jeff from Surfside, while others use the Tofino Community Hall kitchen, such as Lisa, Jason Bivell, or Gord Austin. In addition to a warm soup, Senior Social participants are offered a small charcuterie platter, fruit, tea, and coffee. And if we're lucky, Warren will bring a box of goodies from Fish and Loaves for the seniors to rummage through. Since January, approximately 62 seniors have attended at least one of our programs, with an average of about 8 to 12 participants per session. We are seeing this number grow as we come into the fall. Following a warm and nutritious meal, it's time for the week's activity. So whether it be a dance class, an art workshop, marine biology presentation, or crafts with our daycare kiddos, the room is always bustling with excitement. We encourage skill sharing amongst our participants, where we've seen many examples of seniors teaching seniors, where seniors volunteer their time to develop teaching materials and lead presentations. These sessions have covered a range of topics, including watercolor painting by Elizabeth, West Coast Flora and Fauna by Adrian Dix, or the psychological effects of meditation by Dawn and Peter. Our weekly activities offer an opportunity for our participants to stimulate the mind, foster lifelong learning, and build a sense of purpose and connection. Often, these weekly sessions allow for seniors to engage in light physical activities that promote mobility and overall physical health. We're always looking for volunteers to facilitate an activity, presentation, or workshop. So if you or anyone you know may be interested, please do not hesitate to reach out. The third and final component of our program, the SMEL program, is the weekly meal delivery. So in collaboration with the Better at Home program and Pacific Rim Hospice Society, we're able to reach more vulnerable seniors within the community that are unable to attend our social meal. On Thursday afternoon, so the day after our social, Pam from the Better at Home program picks up the frozen and labeled soups from the community hall to be delivered. Seniors are greeted with a friendly visit and a nutritious meal right to their front door. In total, we've delivered just over 500 portions of soup to the community, to seniors in their homes since May 1st, 2024. Any additional meals are made available for purchase at the Tofino Community Hall for our senior community members. You can pay what you can with a suggested donation of $4 to $6. In 4 months, we've sold nearly 200 portions and collected over $1,000 to put back into our SMILE program. And of course, this wouldn't be possible without the support of our community. A huge thank you to the Government of Canada's New Horizons for Seniors grant for granting us $25,000 to get this flagship program started in 2024. Pacific Rim Hospice Society's Better at Home program provides financial assistance through their social meals program, as well as coordinate the meal deliveries and friendly visits with seniors in their homes. Big thank you to Tarni and Pam for all that they do. Tla-o-qui-aht Biosphere Trust's Eat West Coast program has provided financial assistance as well as mentorship. A big thank you to Erica Gold for that. And finally, we owe so much to the passionate group of seniors within this community. They're always ready to offer ideas, support, and encouragement, as well as navigate this new program together. Thank you so much for listening. If you happen to find yourself wondering, what should I do on this fine Wednesday afternoon? Please come by Senior Social. The door is always open and there's friendly smiles to greet you. I would also like to take this opportunity to say, again, if you or anyone you know may be interested in volunteering to make meals, package meals, label meals, facilitate an activity, please do not hesitate to reach out. I have put up some of our exciting upcoming senior social events starting next week through to December 18th. We have a very fun holiday party planned on December 18th that you won't want to miss. But yeah, I'll leave my contact information up there if anybody wants to contact me, and I'll leave the floor open to any questions or comments.
Well, we appreciate the update and all the information about such a valuable service that's being provided. I'll open up anybody has comments or questions. I see hands going up all around. We'll start at this end and work our way down. Start with Councillor Sawyer.
Thank you. I just have a comment, and I think it really shows to the success of the program. Seniors in town have constantly invited me to come to seniors lunch. They feel it's really fun, and it's just something that everyone's trying to share, and I think that really shows the success.
My favorite day of the week.
I wish I was able to make it. One day my schedule will line up.
Yes.
Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I attended the last senior social with my mother, and that was really nice. It's really nice to see the seniors coming together because we always hear about seniors leaving. It's nice to see how many seniors are here. And I really appreciated that.
You go down there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go down. They've never had their hands up, so may-in-law, and then we'll save the best for last.
There you go.
The worst for last. May-in-law.
Truth is true. I got to attend one invite and it was fabulous. And I just all the seniors said how much they love the program. And I know since that time it's grown even more. So just great work. Thanks.
This year.
It is true. Thank you, Kelsey. And we one of the other things that gets engaged in, I was at the last one or the second last one, is a lot of discussions on municipal topics when they happen to have a captive counselor in the room, it seems. But it was wonderful. The food was great. And there really was a real connection that was made there, and the work is phenomenal that you're doing. The one question I did have was around funding. And there was the initial granting, and I saw some of the sponsors that are there, and I'm wondering about sustainability over the long term. And I was unfamiliar with the granting process. Was it a one-time grant, and has there been any discussion on what the potentially bringing it forward in the financial planning process to be able to sustain this program into the future?
Sure, thank you for the question. It was not a one-time funding, so the New Horizons for Seniors grant is a year after year application process. So we have submitted that application in September and hopefully you should be finding out soon. However, that's kind of where I thank Erica a lot from CBT and Eat West Coast. She's been helping us create a sustainable model through this, trying to sell some of those soups to our community members. We've had an overwhelming amount of support and interest in purchasing soups. Sometimes we run out before we even think about it. So I think that is a way to make it sustainable. However, we are always going to be looking for funding as we want to create a very fulfilling and full experience. And I think a lot of the costs come from us being able to offer those activities and those presentations and those kind of exciting draws to the program, not just the meals. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but we are working on trying to make it sustainable with or without funding. Yeah.
Thank you. Absolutely. That's exactly what I was wanting to do. So thank you.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Moving into item 8.2, we have a municipal alcohol policy review with a verbal report from corporate services. Mr. McCullough.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Stephen Paul. I'm the Manager of Legislative Services here for the District of Tofino. And tonight I'll be presenting a short presentation on the municipal alcohol policy and its review amongst the event scope. So a little bit of background on this policy. In 2019, Council directed staff to develop a municipal alcohol policy. And then staff took over the developed and solid research and gathered input on that policy development. In 2021, Council adopted the policy. This was actually one of the first in British Columbia, the municipality for a first municipal alcohol policy, and received positive sentiments from the officer in the region. This policy's scope focuses on public events on municipal property, which have applied to serve alcohol under the process governed by the LCRD. So when staff typically review a policy, we conduct interviews amongst staff and review to the mandate of the policy itself. So in this case, the mandate for this policy is to ensure alignment with district priorities and community needs. And staff look at that. We often reference council's strategic plan. So in this case, staff wanted to note that public safety comes up in particular as it pertains to strategies and services for those facing mental health and addiction challenges. Advocate for policing priorities that address the unique public safety issues in the community. So there are three main principles of this policy. I'll go over the three primary ones for council tonight. First one is community health and safety. This policy aims to promote the health and safety of all people by creating safety protocols and harm reduction tools to promote thoughtful approaches to the consumption and promotion of alcohol. Principle number two pertains to engagement and support. This policy and any amendments thereto will be developed by meaningfully engaging with the public and event producers to support the provision of responsible events. And finally, the third principle is around inclusivity. So this policy is drafted with the intent to include people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized at public events, and to recognize the respect and the experiences of all community members. So when conducting this review, staff noted back to the policy's purpose, which is to reduce potential harms at public events serving alcohol and to promote the inclusivity at events on public property. Since this policy was adopted, it's been enacted approximately 12 times since 2021. And in those 12 times, staff do consider this policy to be achieving these principles within its current scope and purpose. And the rationale for some of those findings is, in one case, in several cases, that this policy does go further beyond provincial legislation and its regulation, including signage at these events, a safe ride home policy, a last call policy, the station location provisions of the policy, and that the policy prohibits events serving alcohol on select municipal properties. So included in our review process, staff noted two positive notes here: that the importance of celebration in controlled spaces such as the community hall are vital to building a sense of community and social well-being, and that the events that have occurred have been successful and are manageable. Should council choose to proceed with any amendments, staff have a few small amendments of note. One pertaining to just the process in which policy events go through council's consideration, and one suggestion that we may discuss or consider tonight is that the authority to approve the events may be delegated to staff, unless, for example, it is a new event that council hasn't seen before, that the event applicant is reapplying, and that event deviates significantly from the original application, or if the reapplying applicant has received complaints from the previous year's event. And finally, some also notification processes in terms of noise around the event could be discussed. So those are the two areas administratively where staff have noted some potential amendments. Finally, this is council's policy, so it's within the authority of council to amend it and discuss those amendments. Those administrative amendments that I've just mentioned could be discussed. And a note here that within the policy, if council does choose to proceed with amendments, that those amendments will require public consultation. This is just from the policy. The policy here that amendments thereto will be developed by meaningfully engaging with the public and event producers to support the provision of responsible events. So that's all I have for council tonight. No formal recommendation, but happy to discuss with council and answer any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. McCall. We'll open up for questions and comments, and we'll start at the center table.
Sure, yeah, you might want to save me for last if there's, once again, as you know, I might be a bit worried.
Super. Thanks for this. I just have a question for Mr. McCall. How have the event producers responded to the policy over the last few years?
Thank you for the question, Mayor Law. Typically when staff review a policy like this, the review pertains mostly to staff that interact with policies. So internally, from myself, I have not conducted any interviews with event producers to this date. And I'm not sure staff are prepared to respond to those tonight.
No problem.
Councilor Sawyer.
Thank you. I had a question whether or not we have received complaints about any of the events now that we have the new policy in place. From what I've observed, it seems to be, especially the rides or the modes of transportation home, the awareness around that is incredibly well received. And I've noticed that that's really helped move the groups of people from someone who lives very close to the community center and I can hear the events when they go on. Having any form of shuttle has really minimized the after event noise in the neighborhood. So that's much appreciated.
Excellent. Thank you for the note and the comment there, Councillor Sawyer. Again, no review on the complaints thus far. I'm not sure if the manager of community programs is prepared to speak to that.
You can, if you would like. Through the chair. So for complaints, we haven't actually received very many over the past, well, since 2021, since it's been implemented. The one we have is in relation to noise, although once we address that, it seemed to go away. And also we really asked the event producers to ensure that their security is doing loops around the parking lot to help bring people back inside so that people aren't gathering outside and then therefore making more noise. And also working with the event producer to with their sound tech to just lower the volume up a notches. So that has really helped support any conversations we're hearing from the community around noise complaints.
I'll do a quick one and then we'll go down to Councillor Steer. I would say, just because I do talk to a lot of people that organize events or go to the events, I have heard from organizers that they feel there's a lot to our policy, but nobody has complaints about the items that are there. And I think they're all of value, especially the rideshare thing, I think is such a good asset for this. The only thing I hear from community members is a bit about last call, but as somebody who works in alcohol service, I really stand behind that one and I really champion and explain why that's the case with people early on. They're like, what's the sign about? So I have a lot of respect for our municipal alcohol policy and I think it was really well thought out and it's well orchestrated. But that's my viewpoint coming from the service industry that works on the other side of these. Right down to Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for the review process, as is in our policy to have it reviewed. So thank you for that. And just to follow up on Councillor Thomas, just because I've been fortunate enough to be able to, the municipal alcohol policy of Tofino is recognized nationally. That's how well it was crafted and put together. I've had the fortunate to be able to speak at a number of events. In fact, I'll be speaking at one on November 18th, specifically around the work that we've done here in Tofino on this. And part of that was just as you had, and the guiding principles behind it were key to that in terms of public safety, recognizing inclusivity and engagement and support. These were key factors in that policy being successful. And once again, in the engagement with the community. So thank you for that. I have, in terms of the recognition of the policy, there was just a couple of amendments, and it's a language thing within it, and within there, in the purpose, you'll see in there, and the quote is, the policy recognizes that responsible alcohol use. I would like to remove the word responsible, because the implications of that are that it's onto the individual and not the substance. And what we're trying to do is remove that from the individual and focus on what is the cause of it, not the individual. It's the substance, not the individual's behavior. So to take responsible out would be something that I would like to see amended in there. And I don't know if we need a motion for that or at some point. And the other was a question in terms of the engagement on a review process. I wasn't sure exactly what the mandate for you in terms of that review process was. So thank you for informing me on that, because I was curious if there was an outreach, for example, to RCMP in terms of the public safety aspect of it, in terms of looking at measuring in metrics. And now I understand that it's not the purpose of that review policy, but there may be some potential to go directly out, as Mayor Law had asked, in terms of directly with those event sponsors and to those that might be responsible for the policing of it. And as we know from our public health, we had our medical health officer do. We still know that it is a serious issue within our communities, and so so there may be an opportunity through this review to have conversation at maybe another committee of the whole, where we have a conversation, as was talked about from our medical health officer and from other medical health officers throughout British Columbia, around a community alcohol strategy. which is different than a municipal alcohol policy. And I won't go into the details of it there, but this might be an excellent segue into that conversation at the community level, because we are recognizing that it is still an issue within our communities from a public health and safety perspective. And as we just saw in the press recently in Q&amp, it is still a major issue that from a policing standpoint that has been brought to the attention of council there. I'll leave it there. But one question maybe it might be to Cindy, in terms of the compliance checklist that we have, and it seems that the feedback from Councillor Thomas was such that the event producers were seeing, I hate to use the word burdensome, but certainly there is a lot there. I think it's a very well put together checklist. I'm just wondering, how is the compliance checklist checked to see that those provisions, and not just a check mark on a box, but in fact that what they say they're doing is being done?
Through the chair. So our culture and events programmer is, she manages all of our special event permits that are approved at council and on the property. So she works with the event organizer to get everything in line before the event. And then during the event, she is actually on site with the event or on call, depending on the level of risk we're anticipating. So in speaking to the checklist, it does kind of go one step above what is required from the BC Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch, in that it's putting in very stringent activities or processes that are just kind of vague within the policy or the act, sure. So anyways, so for instance, the signage or the last call, it doesn't really stipulate that within from BC Liquor Regulation Branch, but that just taking it a step further. And so I think most of the events, while sometimes it may feel a little clunky at first, I think we're now all in a good process of doing these events successfully. And so I also see events really wanting to ensure that they have a very positive outcome, because at the end of the day, it's on the event organizer if that doesn't go right. So they're really, I think they appreciate being held to that high level of expectation, because it's just ensuring their success as well.
Thank you. Yeah, because it speaks once again, and I'm always going back to the purpose of why we create these policies, and so the purpose and the guiding principles, I think, are intact, and that's one way of ensuring that we can do that. So thank you for that. I do have one last comment in terms of you had talked about some possible amendments, and because I didn't have them up forward, I don't know if it's possible to have them back up onto the screen. I mean, I can remember off the top of my head, I would still be reluctant at this point in time to. I think it's still important for them to come before council on there, and I can see the rationale for just having the approval process within staff, and it does make sense. At the same time, it's I think it's important for us to be able to have that ability to look at each one of those in context, and especially. I get the importance of, if it's the same event and it's the same things over and over and over, I get it. But there are a lot of new events, and there are a lot of events that do come forward. So I would like to keep as we are. And in terms of the notification process, I wasn't sure what the amendment possibility on the notification process was. I may have forgotten. You probably did explain it clearly. But yeah.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Sears, to the chair. This is just a general suggestion or amendment consideration for council regarding noise at events, and there are occasionally noise complaints, and so there's a staff suggestion to take a deeper look at a notification process that may alert ahead of time residents in an area where an event is taking place, so that residents aren't caught off guard. But frankly, we haven't dove into this notification process amendment at length before council authorizes staff to do that work. So just wanted to raise that here for council's consideration, and happy to bring forward an amendment consideration if council chooses to authorize that.
Thank you. Yeah, and so in response to that, I think it is important, as we do ask, in those conversations around, say, primary liquor license, for example, or when we go out to that 60, I think it's 60-meter notification area. How onerous is that? Would that be for staff to be able to do something as, I mean, around here, that I don't know how many places that would even apply to, especially around the community hall, but is that a process that takes a lot of time and energy from staff?
Good question. Thank you for the question, Councillor Stewart, through the chair. I don't want to speak on behalf of staff and the capacity there. At this moment, amongst initial calculations, I believe the closest residency to the community hall is 75 meters, so it's close to that threshold. But if council chooses to authorize staff tonight to do that work, I'm happy to bring forward amendments regarding a notification process around sound or radius.
Yeah, the only other area I think is the Village Green, of course, where we've had events in the past where alcohol may be served, and there obviously would be some residential properties within that 60-meter radius.
But yeah, and thank you for that note, Councillor Stewart, through the chair. The policy does prohibit any events on the Village Green.
Right, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
That would be excluded.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I had two more hands up. I had Jan Law, Mayor Law, and then Councillor Sawyer. And so I'll let you guys make your comments, and then maybe we'll talk about the housekeeping amendments.
Sure. Actually, I just wanted to make a comment on the amendments. I have watched these come through the consent agenda and noted how much, discussion they elicit from council, and noting that, I think I'd be happy with staff's recommendation that, repeat events without changes would not have to come before council. So I'd be happy with that. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Councillor Sawyer.
Thank you. My comment is also on the amendments and recognizing Councillor Steer's concerns. However, I would share those same concerns, but I'm reassured by the fact that any proposal or any event that is reapplying but has received complaints would still have to come before council. Any new event or an event changing location would still have to come before council. And the fact that we don't have any alcohol permitted events on trail networks or on the parks, playground and skate park and bike park, I feel fairly confident that what we're really looking at is preventing the noise or disorderly complaints, and those would bring that event to council. So I feel like that would be really well worked in there.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I would support staff delegating the authority for approval to staff. The reason for that is that I think council, I mean, I'm thinking in a long-term sense. Staff sort of they use the policy, they see how it works, and councils change over time, but it would live with staff a little bit more, I think. And so yeah, I would support that. I think I would comment on the notification process. It might be something that maybe you sign up to be notified rather than going out every time and finding everybody that lives in a neighborhood and notifying them. And people might move or change in a neighborhood. So it might be a process where if you live nearby the community hall, do you want to be notified when there's an event? Might work better if you sort of signed on to a list for notification. The other thing I would add, that maybe it would come back to council when an event is reapplying that wasn't in full compliance. So that would be an addition I'd like to see. That's my comments.
Thank you. For myself, I would be happy with the housekeeping amendments that are proposed. I think the notification thing is kind of a funny one. Given that when people are hosting and promoting events, generally they try to give notification to every living being in the community, like usually posters or Facebook things. And I think adding something, I mean, the only step beyond that is kind of to go to door knocks, which I think would be a little bit of a strange ask for the events, maybe a sign up thing, but I imagine in that case, there's many ways where people can stay abreast of the events that are happening in the community. There's lots of ways that it gets communicated. So I'm not sure how I feel about the notification process, but the other housekeeping amendments I would be happy to see added in. Just maybe just on the housekeeping amendments, we'll just check in with Councillor Sloman and Councillor McMaster, and then we'll go back to you, Stuart.
I'm comfortable with the housekeeping amendments.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, Councillor Stuart.
And I'm fine with the housekeeping amendments as well, doing the rest of council.
Yeah, beautiful. Do you need a motion from us to look into those?
Yes, thank you for the question, Chair Sawyer. I'll need a motion and also a provision of the policy based a requirement of a public consultation window on those amendments. So I'll need both of those motions.
All right, I do not have a motion prepared, so.
If I may, I could recommend something on the fly.
Sure.
Just verbally that staff are authorized to proceed with amendments to the municipal alcohol policy as discussed in the committee of the whole, and that staff proceed with a public engagement window based on those amendments.
So I will move that. We have a seconder. Councillor Sawyer seconds. All in favor? Seeing none opposed, that motion is carried. Before we move on, did we want to discuss Councillor Steer's suggestion for the removal of the word responsible from the purpose? Does anybody have feedback on that? Councillor Sawyer?
I totally hear Councillor Steer's thoughts on what using that word, and I believe you're looking at just in item 1 of the municipal alcohol policy under purpose.
Correct.
Yes, so I totally agree with you, but I feel, however, that keeping responsible, the word in there is good because it brings people's focus back to being mindful, being responsible, being safe. So perhaps not merely removing the word responsible, but we could replace it with something that council decides to be more appropriate for that section. Is that something that you would be on board with?
If I may, through the chair, I would not be. Public policy is very clear on this one, and this is an industry narrative that is completely taking over this part of the conversation around responsibility of the individual. So if there is other language that might be appropriate, I would be comfortable maybe exploring that. But as it stands, I think it's very clear that the policy recognizes that alcohol use on public property is based on the following foundational principles. And so it's clearly articulated within there. So I would be, I would very much like to remove the word responsible from that part of the policy, because I think it reflects clearly a lot of the policy work that's being done at a very large level. And this is one of the key things that is identified, is that industry narrative is often used to put the responsibility onto the individual as opposed to the substance itself. So that's the main reason I would like that one word taken out of there, because the rest of the sentence is clearly articulates the purpose of the policy.
Thank you. George, have your hand up?
Yeah, I just, if we're gonna discuss this one line, I find it would be difficult to read this, this part of the policy without responsible. Because I think that's, I mean, I understand there's public policy discussions around the use of words, but it would have to be, it seems to me that it would have to be recrafted. I think because the way I read it is to try to differentiate how alcohol is used to make it more palatable, or more, that's safe, or more safe, more inclusive, and not. So I would find it really hard to read that one clause without responsible, unless it was completely changed. So that would be my problem. It would be, I think ultimately, right, it would be a difficult conversation to have on the fly. To whether to change it or just simply remove it.
I think I would agree with that. I personally think taking the word responsible out of there makes it sound, to me, it changes the context when I see responsible alcohol. I think having a drink or two with friends, when the word responsible is taken out of that, and I see the policy recognizes that alcohol use in public property, to me, I envision sometimes people just cracking beers in the park. Kind of changes the context a little bit of that for me. But I did want to give this the space, of course, since it was brought up. Maybe Councillor Sawyer will.
Just one follow-up comment for clarity, just so Councillor Steer can understand. I feel that as I'm reading this, I see that the responsibility is placed on the vendor, not on the participant, ticket holders of the event. So this policy is directed towards the promoters of events. And so it's saying that it is up to the promoter of the event to be responsible with the use of alcohol. That's how I read it and that's why I'm comfortable with it. But I do agree we could discuss this further another time.
If there are no additional comments on this, maybe that's something that we could revisit in the future because it is a difficult thing to discuss on the fly if we were recrafting a section here. Are there any other questions or comments before we move on? Oh. Okay.
I actually feel like that's more responsible, and to me, it does make sense to not have it there, but if that's not the feeling of the majority, then I'm fine to revisit it later as well.
Is looking at recrafting this section something that the staff would be able to bundle in with that? If we're already getting community feedback on something else, would this be an area where we could also ask for community feedback without it being too onerous?
Thank you for the question, Chair.
Sorry.
Yes, I believe I can come back to council with some amendments or ideas around this on further review and research. And then council would authorize those amendments to go out to the public for.
Is this something that we're interested in displaying? Councilor Anderson?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of how it would read without it, and you'd almost have to remove everything and just say this policy is based on the following principles. Or reword the whole thing to have a different message. And recognize that no level of alcohol consumption is really safe, has been more recently articulated by health officials. So.
Oh, sorry. No, I haven't even been looking over on the side of the room. I apologize.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to support this discussion a little bit, that's all right. I just want to remind that this is committee of the whole, so this is the time to dig into a language on a policy if it is being reviewed. The committee is free to take the time that's needed to contemplate new language for the policy, provide some suggestions to staff to contemplate, which would give us more guidance after leaving today's meeting. One idea that was just presented by council, a member of council, was to consider it through the consultation process if staff or if council would like staff to seek some thoughts from the community on that word in particular, or how that policy may read to those that are being engaged on this policy. That is something we could do and bring feedback back to council for consideration. But this is the time where we really want to obtain feedback from council on the different areas of the policy that require some more work or require further review by staff. I think that I just want to make sure staff does leave with clarity on what the concern is with the word, and please staff ask as many questions as possible from council or the committee so that we can leave with that clarity and then come back with something that I think productive solution for amendment.
Thank you. And that noted. Does anyone have anything additional they would like to add?
Just here, just a comment, since we're gonna chat a little bit more, I just want to be clear that I have no problem with wordsmithing to get it, you know, dialed into good policy, but I actually, Councillor Anderson's comments did resonate with me, that the policy is just about public safety, or that, I like that myself, so. Just, that's my response to Councillor Anderson.
Okay, thank you for the comment, Mayor Lodge. Just so I'm clear, the intent to remove the word responsible, could council perhaps summarize or elaborate the intent there? I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly.
I think we'll let the.
Yeah. So if the purpose of municipal alcohol policy is to reduce potential harms as part of it, and so the consensus around this is using the word responsible in terms of the individual usage is problematic, because it's an industry narrative that's been created to place the responsibility onto the individual. In terms of the policy, and if you, I need some clarification maybe from the rest of the council why they're having difficulty with removing responsible, because if you read it, the policy recognizes alcohol use on public properties based on the following foundational principles. We would have to define responsible very clearly then to have an understanding what we mean by that. By just simply removing it, the policy recognizes alcohol use on public properties based on the following foundational principles. That to me is very clear, and it takes away that ambiguity around responsible and defining what that means in the general context of this policy, which we clearly articulate the foundational principles as community health and safety, engagement and support and inclusivity.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, Councilor Steele. So what I'm understanding is that perhaps that word responsible is too ambiguous, and whether or not to remove it or change the language to be less ambiguous on that purpose. Number one thing.
Because the purpose is of the policy, right, is alcohol use on public property in the context of foundational principles, and the purpose is to potentially reduce harms at public events.
It's a lot easier to remove the word.
Like a statement. Councillor Sawyer had her hand up. So
I'd actually like to hear from the rest of council first.
Anyone else have input on this? I'm feeling.
It's the way that the English language works. When we say is based on the following principles, are we referring, which is based on the following principles, the policy or alcohol use? Which is that bit of language going back to? So that's what's, I think, tripping us up a bit. Trying to understand just how the sentence works. So it's not so much about disagreeing with having responsible in there or not. The sentence itself is a bit problematic. Which part of the sentence, when we go into is based on the following, is it referring back to the policy or responsible alcohol use or just alcohol use?
I will say my comment on it, my interpretation is just like a surface level response to the sentence. I don't have any particularly strong attachments to the current wording. I am amenable to making this a document that everybody is happy with.
I could see, I think that Councilor Anderson has a point. It's about sentence structure and what does what refers to what. And I think that if we replaced responsible with managing alcohol use, then that would be, because that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to manage alcohol use, or at least put in a policy that manages in some form alcohol use. And that's what is based on public safety. Because it's still possible for somebody at a public event or at one of these events on public property to be under the same policy to to use alcohol in an irresponsible way. And there's negative outcomes. We all know that. And so I think for me, that is where the wordsmithing gets in, is that, you know, there's gonna be something attached to the alcohol use that we're talking about. And maybe I do agree, responsible is very difficult to use with alcohol, but what we're trying to do is manage it. So if we could replace responsible with managing alcohol use on public properties based on this, then I think that makes a little more sense to me. But I'm just here for a conversation right now, so I'm not making any directives yet.
That word fits good for me in that sentence. I was trying to find a word that could take the place of responsible, and managing seems to line up good for me. I like that one.
Yeah, I would agree with that, both in the sentence structure and how it reads, and the fact that we do want to have something in there that recognizes that the policy is trying to promote, you know, a more organized, more responsible, or better managed consumption of alcohol, as was referenced. You cannot say totally safe. But I would also reiterate, given Councillor Steer's repeated comment that the industry is pushing the onus onto the individual by using the word responsible, this policy is geared towards the event promoters and not the individuals who will be consuming the alcohol at the event. And so that's why I do feel like it is important to have some wording in there, because this policy is being directed towards an event promoter or organizer who will have to be responsible, thoughtful, and in line with the policy to have their event going on. So I think it's good to have words in there that make them think about those things.
Good, okay, if I may, or I feel that I am confident enough with council's discussion tonight to bring back forward amendments based on that line there around some language, and also with those housekeeping amendments. Council is happy with that, where we're standing right now.
Wonderful. So we already have a motion for the housekeeping amendments. Do you need a motion now as well for this section?
No, that's fine, yeah, that's fine.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. McCall.
And council.
And with that, we'll go into item 8.3. We have a strategic plan action items. Verbal report from our CAO, Nyla Atiana.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I will be presenting a more detailed action plan for the Council 2024-2026 strategic plan. I'm just going to run through what within Council in the package. Today I'm not providing any status updates on these action items, but just to talk a little bit about the process that staff went through to develop these actions. The strategic plan itself was referred out to all the divisions, and the divisions commented on various actions that could be included under those strategic priorities, and how they are being considered in the 2025 to 2029, I think, financial plan, which council will see on November 7th. And so we won't be fully, we may not include 100% of what's in here in that first draft of the financial plan, but that's the stage that we're in now, as we're working through how to incorporate those into council's next financial plan. The purpose of preparing a detailed action plan and going further than what's included in council strategic priorities and the objectives noted in the plan that was developed is for us to be able to put our minds to how to move those priorities forward. And ensure that the objectives that are outlined in that strategic plan can be met through various action items. So we went one step further, and we want to make sure that council is comfortable with the more detailed action plan, and if there's anything additional that you would like added this evening would be an opportunity to do that for staff. So staff put timelines to each of these action items that are in here, and we will be using this document to come back to council in Q2 and Q3 of each year to provide updates on these deliverables and these action items. So as part of our quarterly updates to council council will also see updates on their strategic plan priorities. So I'm getting help from staff in front of the computer to move through each column. So I'll just start with, I have the 6 strategic priorities across the top of the page, and I'll start with water security. And the priority here is to prioritize and implement the recommendations in the water master plan. And so within that, the staff will be developing a limits to growth policy in 2024. Put Beers Island Creek flow monitoring in place in 2024, and that will continue going forward. Undertake source water feasibility study in 2024 and 2025. Examine and report out on the water feasibility study in 2025 and 2026. And complete the water development cost charge bylaw in 2024 to 2026. So those are 5 items, but they're fairly detailed and fairly lengthy. We are working our way through the limits to growth policy, which is taking the better part of 2024 as one example, and we'll continue to move through those other detailed action items. So I might just stop after each column just to see if there's any further comments from council or action items that council would like to add.
Not seeing any hands up around the
Oh,
table. Oh, sorry, Councillor Solon.
I didn't know if it would be appropriate, but I would have liked to see it in this section, the incentivization to help residents recycle and reuse water.
That is an active resolution of council. I think that was just missed, so I'm going to add that on.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to housing, the priorities here, there were 4 objectives and priorities listed in the council strategic plan. So I'll just go one by one. The 2 kind of go together, and there's detailed action items under after the second one. So develop appropriate short-term rental policies with the objective of increasing housing supply. Second one, review and revise current zoning bylaw to support and enable increased housing availability and affordability. So the action items that tie into that is a zoning bylaw update, which is going to take place 2024 to 2026. Update of the business license regulation bylaw and sync with that in 2025 and 2026. Moving on to 2.3, which is the update, the housing needs assessment report to support effective policy development and advocacy efforts. So we'll be completing an interim housing needs assessment, which is required by the province in 2024, and updating the housing needs assessment in 2026. Lastly, develop strategies to provide sustainable funding for the Tofino Housing Corporation, and that some of that action item really sits with the Tofino Housing Corporation itself, but staff can look at the development of a real estate investment strategy, and that's going to be looked at in 2025. Any comments from council on that one?
Just a question for clarity on that last one, if you could scroll down or up, whatever that is. So I just want to be clear, develop a real estate investment strategy. That is not relating directly to the THC, but to District of Tofino, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so is it, should it be under a different, it's under 2.4, which is specifically related to THC, and that one is under it. So it kind of reads to me that develop a real estate investment strategy is to do with the THC. So I just want to make sure that's.
I can explain that. So most recently, district purchased 740 Campbell Street, and that was to secure access to really critical water infrastructure. With taking on properties and residential properties like that, there will likely be a discussion and sort of a strategy around increasing staff housing or affordable housing. So in order to have or provide some level of funding to the housing corporation from our perspective, it has in the past been transfers of land to support any future affordable housing development. So outside of offering land in terms of developing affordable housing, staff sort of had a difficult time thinking of actual funding streams or funding sources. The contributions have come in the past from contributions of land or transfers of land, such as DL 114. And now through the Housing Accelerator Fund, we are looking at potential opportunities for land development in the municipality. But if council would like us to have a look at funding streams in particular, or other types of more sustainable funding, we can have a look at that as well.
Just for clarity from me, I have no problem with the real estate investment strategy is great. I just wondered how that reads under that bullet. You know, it was just a little confusing for me, how those two were connected.
Okay.
That's my only comment.
We can move it elsewhere or tie it, or just have it as a general item. It may get a couple different priorities, but for now, we placed it here.
Sure, only if other councillors also see anything. If not, I'm willing to just leave it as is. It was just me reading it, trying to figure out how those two were connected.
Staff were a little bit challenged in terms of where to place particular action items, because some of them do hit multiple priorities. And some of the objectives were more defined as specific action items rather than a little bit more general to be able to build out the specific or more detailed action items. So for now, it is sitting here, but I think generally it'll likely support the housing priority entirely.
It's fine.
Okay. So moving on to stewardship of natural assets. A few priorities or objectives are established in here. Establish a 30 by 30 target for the protection of our green space, whereby 30% of the land base in the district is preserved by 2030. So the development of a municipal forest strategy will take place 2025 to 2026. Second one is develop a natural and urban forest management strategy. And 3.3 is review the official community plan and establish policies that strengthen the protection of foreshore lands in the district. So we've included a couple items there: coastal flooding and tsunami inundation review in 2025. And most recently discussed at council and referred to staff was explore green burial options at the Tofino Cemetery, and that's noted for 2025.
Through the chair. Yeah, I just one question on the that I didn't see noted on there, and you'll have to remind me if this was included in our strategic priority around the natural asset management and where that was going to be placed in your time frame for the work that needs to be done.
Yeah, thank you for the question through the chair. So at the most recent, I believe it was the last council meeting, we presented on asset management. Through the strategic planning process, we decided that asset management has become regular business for the municipality. And as part of that portfolio, we will be looking at natural assets. And we outlined the timeline for that in that last presentation. I can't recall what the year was. It will come after a review of several of the other categories.
I did recall, I just couldn't remember the details.
Yeah.
I just had a comment on 3.3. I believe there was a motion from council and it had to do with strengthening foreshore lands, and it had to do, I believe, with the review of the language in the OCP, I believe, to strengthen that language. So it's not necessarily a policy review, or established policies, but it was a look at the language, because I believe that was on the books.
Thank you. Through the chair, it was to develop a policy related to foreshore applications and the referral of foreshore applications. So it wasn't specific to the OCP. So I'm going to add that to the list, go back to that resolution and make sure we include that on the action item list with a date for council. Moving on. Okay, so the next one is community recreation with a couple objectives. 4.1, develop a business case and supporting advocacy strategy to secure external funding to support the development of recreation facilities. So we will be undertaking a recreation and parks master plan, which has begun and underway 2024 to 2025. Explore partnerships for possible shared facilities 2024 to 2026. Continue to explore grant opportunities for facilities as they arise, which is ongoing and something that on a regular basis. 4.2 is undertake a feasibility study for the development of an outdoor aquatic facility, and that's shown in there for 2025 and 2026. Moving on to relationships with our partners. 5.1 is advance reconciliation by fostering relationships and building understanding with the local First Nation partners and exploring opportunities for collaboration and shared services. So under there, coordinate annual community to community meetings, which will occur in 2024 and 2026. Strike committees to address specific issues as they arise, which is ongoing. Offer training and education for staff and council 2024 to 2026. And attend community to community forums at UBCM, which we began doing in 2024 and will continue to 2026. 5.2 is convene a table of government agencies and groups to share common interests, goals, and objectives, and to identify opportunities for collaboration on common issues and initiatives. So under there, we have identify and prioritize issues annually, engage key partners, and develop action plans 2024 to 2020. Moving on to the last one, advocacy. 6.1, healthcare, prioritization of hospital upgrades, provision of a broader range of health services to ensure citizens have local access to routine healthcare. Under there, identify regional partners to support ongoing advocacy and outreach 2024 to 2026. Continue regular meetings with Island Health at UBCM and regular staff to staff meetings 2024 to 2026. 6.2 is public safety, strategies and services for those facing mental health and addiction challenges. Advocate for policing priorities that address the unique public safety issues in the community. We will do regular updates and meetings with our CNP 2024 to 2026 and consider minister meetings during UBCM 2024 to 2026. Lastly, education, advocate for continued and increased access to education for the community. Consider minister meetings at UBCM 2025 to 2026 and build partnerships with SD 70, School District 70 to advance opportunities 2024 to 2026.
Chair, just to comment on this, we did have a meeting at UBCM with North Island College, and they've been reaching out to Q&amp as well as Tofino to try to build connections and a relationship. I'm wondering, since that was already sort of presented to us and the opportunity to collaborate is already there, if that would be suitable to add to this, or we could leave it off and just do it anyway.
I can add that.
Maybe.
Yep, I will have that in.
Any other questions or comments? Nobody had any additional thoughts? Beautiful, thank you, Ms. Tatiana. Does anyone have unfinished business for item 9? Generally not a committee of the whole. Item 10, we are into our question period.
Thank you, Chair Thomas. We do have one person that has joined us online, so I will now make an open call for questions to both members of the gallery and those participating online. For those in the gallery who wish to speak, please raise your hand. If there is anyone attending online via Zoom that would like to ask a question, you can do so now using the Q&A function. Before asking a question, you will have to state your name, your address, and the agenda item you are speaking to. I will now do a calling once, calling twice, calling 3 times. There is no one for questions, Chair Thomas.
Thank you. The final item on our agenda today is item 11, which is adjournment. So I will move adjournment.
Yeah.
Okay. We are adjourned. All the time.